Again, another podcast episode, another great guest. This is actually going to be, I think, podcast episode number 34. The numbers keep on racking up, man, coming up to a year. And I have an awesome guest on today. Please tell me I say it. I think when we chatted beforehand, I was like, this is how you pronounce your name correctly, and I think I heard someone else say it. So Aganz, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's a made-up word. So, I've heard people say Aganz, Aganz. Aganz is typically how my friends make fun of me when we hang out, so I'll answer to any of those.
Sweet, man. Or AKA Alex, or if you don't want me to say that, I can just mute that out, too.
No, it's fine. I mean, people have said my name before. It's not top secret.
All right. I was about to say if I need to, I'll go back and take it out. But yeah, man. So, wow. You're such a kind of like a jack of all trades too, and it's kind of like something. I remember always looking at your profile. This is actually like a while back, and just always appreciating the styling, the input, and the cool sticks you had, and then aesthetic. The aesthetic feel of everything was always really just so clean too. So it's awesome to have you on, man.
Thanks. Well, I mean, it's my pleasure. I love the podcast, and you've had a lot of cool people on here, some folks that I know, some mutual friends, and I'm stoked to be here and hang out and chat and talk about cool stuff. That's really the whole reason I do any of this, is because just want to do something meaningful, something cool, and contribute.
Absolutely. So, I think on today's discussion, as we were just chatting beforehand, like recapping, because we've talked about a couple different times what we want to discuss, and I think we'll talk a little bit about merch and stuff like that. Some of the stuff that Alex offers, Aganz offers with his businesses actually. A little bit of podcast discussion, a little bit of industry talk, cameras and photography, which I think is something that he just does fantastically, especially with the marketing that'll probably tie in with merchandising, but also guns, man. How can we not talk about guns a little bit at least? Just because it makes up I would say a huge proponent of kind of following and stuff like that, and kind of a time. But yeah, man, how are you doing today? How are you doing this week?
Good. I'm glad it's Friday. I've had a very busy week, and it's always fun to do something like this on a Friday, hang out and talk about cool stuff. But just looking forward to the weekend. It's been raining here in Texas nonstop for the last week, and I've been itching to get outside and mess with my new fire pit and some stuff I've been doing out in the yard. So it's good. Sun's out. Feeling great.
Yeah, that'll be good, man. Yeah, I was about to say it's I've been really slack about shooting recently, just because it's just one thing after another. But yeah, it's starting to heat up. And you're in Texas, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we're in Dallas. We actually had a couple of shoots get postponed this last week. I was supposed to take my wife out because she hasn't shot in a while, trying to keep her skills sharp. And the venue we were going to, this piece of land was basically a swamp because of all the rain. So we had to postpone that, sadly. But between the prices of ammo and the weather, it's not been in our favor recently. Yeah,
and that's unfortunate too, man. It's actually been. I feel kind of bad because it's actually been weather-wise pretty solid here, but it just has never been in the cards. But it is starting to heat up soon, though. And I know, like within Texas, with it being a swamp in Texas, I can only imagine that sounds fucking awful, dude. That sounds miserable.
Yeah, it's a little humid. I mean, I will take the cooler weather from the rain any day over like July and August here, where it feels like the surface of the sun. But it'll be good to get out and get a couple of reps in and bring the shot timer and get some rounds down range. Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to have to join you on that. So I will say, so I know one of the big things, and this has been kind of a part of your branding and stuff like that, is when it starts getting hot and stuff like that, and the weather kind of becomes intolerable, especially in those really, really dry heats too, a lot of night shooting starts happening. You guys get to go on night shooting using night vision and stuff like that, and I think that's always been one. It's such a cool look, and aesthetically, it's so cool. But you do a good job on stylizing it too, so it's not like it's tacky or overdone. But I was just going to say, so when is it getting close for you guys out that way to start doing some more night shooting, or like what's the time period for that?
Yeah, it's actually kind of the opposite. What's interesting is every year I kind of notice a color shift in my photography and the content that I'm producing. When it's, in the summertime, the sun doesn't set here in Texas until like 8 o'clock at night. So you get out to the property, some, private range or some spot, outside of Dallas. And, the hunt doesn't really start until like 9 or 10 o'clock, and you go until, the wee hours of the morning. In winter, it's way nicer for night shooting because the sun goes down at like 4:30. you can get out and shoot for hours or go on a big hunt and still be home, sometimes at midnight, which my wife really appreciates. So in the summertime, all my pictures that I'm taking are, during the day, very tan, and in the wintertime, all my pictures start getting really dark, right? Because we're shooting, when the sun is down. It kind of has its own natural seasons that, reflects the real season. So it's kind of funny you bring that up.
Yeah. So it's kind of, and I think it's something I didn't really pay a lot of attention to until I started really like doing a lot of editing and stuff like that. Or like, let me rephrase that. I say that like I'm some kind of pro or something like that, but more or less me attempting to do more editing and stuff like in Lightroom and everything. But I did notice, like, even like for me, I started doing a lot more kind of like more yellowish tint in pictures and stuff like that, a little more brighter, a little more sunnier, a little more vibrant, I guess. And then like, previous in the fall and the winter, it was definitely kind of like more of a bluish and darkish hue. So that's pretty cool that, you kind of already had that formalized and that's kind of what you're aiming for. And did you do that naturally, or was it just, just how the pictures come out and then so that's how you just stylize them and so you just kind of keep going?
That's a great question. I think to answer that, I'll first take a big step back, right, on the importance of kind of being formulaic and being consistent. Instagram is generally a platform that rewards consistency, right? And that aligns, in my professional life, I work in branding and advertising. And consistency over time is really how our brand is established. And if people know what to expect, you're consistently delivering on your brand promise, as we would call it, you drive loyalty and connection over time. So going back to your initial question, is it purposeful? There are visual elements, I think, that are very important to be consistent about, right? To have a look and a feel that is uniquely yours, whether that's an editing style, a photography style, some kind of, the way that you stage a picture or dress the subject or the model or whoever it may be, yourself, right? Sure. There should be some kind of ownable factor in there that you can uniquely have attached to your brand that is consistent over time. So what I try to do as a non-professional photographer, right, as someone who's just very passionate about this space and tries to learn from, the guys who do it full time, is to find your image, right? Your look and feel. Do you edit a certain way? Do you have a color palette that's uniquely recognizable, as being, you? So I don't know. I try to stick to that as much as I can, being consistent, so that when people see my pictures, they go, "Oh yeah, that's that guy." I know what to expect from him, and they recognize it when they see it somewhere out in the wild.
Yeah, that's really cool too. And you're not the first person to have told me that too, for like branding and feeling, and that was always something I'll be honest, I've always been concerned or worried that if I put myself in one spot, I'll kind of put myself in like a kind of like, I'm trying to think of the correct word, like a canyon, I guess, like just a divot. And so that if I get in this divot, then I'm not going to be able to get out of it. And so I know at times, I think starting off that kind of hurt me because I was trying to figure out or decipher the direction. Because you're 100% right, and that's kind of like how you maintain a stronger following or like a cohesive following. So that is definitely 100% agree. It's cool, man.
I think at the end of the day, people want to know what to expect from you, right? If you're kind of all over the place and you're posting random stuff, they can't really figure you out, and you really only have a couple of seconds to grab that person's attention and and captivate them. If you are really clear and consistent, people can understand who you are, what you're about. They're more likely to stick around, right? Because they sign up, that expectation's been established, and then you kind of deliver on that consistently over time. In advertising, we have a 70-20-10 rule. So 70% of the time, you're kind of focusing on the established parameters of your brand, right? 20% of the time you can kind of be a little bit experimental. 10% of the time you can be way off the deep end, right? Testing and learning and just doing something kind of radical. The lion's share should be pretty consistent, right? Building that cohesive and clear brand, but you've still got room to experiment and evolve so that you're never painting yourself into a corner, right? You're trying new things, you're trying a new, a new style, a new format, a new medium, whatever it may be. so that you can still continue to evolve, the brand kind of like as a living thing versus, I actually fell prey to this myself in the early days years ago when I first started, getting on Instagram. I only wanted to take pictures that were, on a black background, and it got so hard to replicate. It really wasn't feasible, and I did paint myself into a corner. I really had to kind of expand my mind creatively and say, hey, I can do more things but still be consistent without boxing myself in. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Do you see that it's always like a mixed report too, and I don't want to make it completely about. Well, I guess it kind of does kind of go with branding and merchandising.
This is kind of an Instagram podcast, right?
Yeah, yeah, it kind of is. But I think you do such a great job at it too. So I think you're a great talk piece. And again, it's not like just recently. I hadn't seen your profile so many times on my personal account, and I'd seen your account, and man, it was just always just like, man, this guy's like, everything on this profile is just so clean. It's so nicely done, and so. And it's not, I'm not saying it hasn't changed, because it definitely has changed, but I guess, I'm just saying I recognized it a time ago. When did you...
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, man. Let me just say thank you. I mean, I try to do things that I think are cool, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You just learn, and, you improve over time. But people have been very, very kind to me and always been very supportive of me, so I 100% appreciate that.
Yeah, and absolutely. And when you compliment me, let me compliment you at the fact that I've... Obviously, as you said, you've looked at people as a good, kind of a path or looking at how they're doing. And I would be lying if I said that I didn't see the content or stuff that you put out, and me not trying to emulate it or put my twist on it, or just see how you are, establishing it. So it's 100%. So thank you for having such a great account. So, but on top of that though, does it seem like with marketing, and I'll stay with Instagram for just a smidge longer, and then we'll go ahead and move on to something that's less like, I guess probably boring for some people, but do you find that Instagram is just like the key aspect in marketing as an advertising tool? I mean, it just seems like it's kind of the juggernaut at this point, at least just from me, at least from what I've seen, but do you kind of get the same aspect?
Yeah, let me answer that from two perspectives.
Sure.
A personal perspective and then kind of a bigger professional brand perspective.
Yeah,
so when we design, a brand campaign, there's going to be a lot of different channels in that media plan. It's going to have traditional, non-traditional, creative. It's going to have out of home. It's going to have digital, paid social, all that kind of stuff that gets wrapped into that plan. Paid social, right? Instagram and Facebook, which we generally treat the same, right? I think executional level, you're going to have like carousels and stories. There's going to be some differences, but it's essentially the same media provider. So yes, it's definitely important for most brands to be, on social to some degree. I think most brands just underestimate how captivated Gen Z is by TikTok and just how massive the volume is there. Facebook and Instagram really are not the key player for anybody younger than like 25 right now. And a lot of brands don't get that, and they don't really know how to exist in TikTok because it's, it's very foreign to them. From a personal perspective though, I mean, Instagram literally has been the source of everything, cool and gun related in my life, right? Meeting the people that I shoot with, using the brands that I buy and I use on a regular basis, the t-shirts I wear, the guns I shoot, the photographers that I follow and that I learn from a business perspective, guys that I look up to, like yourself, like Derek from Privateer, he was on here, the guys at Kilo and Axel and, Warm Fuzz, all these cool companies. Instagram has been a huge powerhouse, a huge influence for me, but I always worry that all my eggs are in that basket, right? I'm not doing YouTube videos. I'm not on Facebook. I've got my site that collects, emails for the newsletter, but if I get shut down, like any of us could be at any second for no reason, like what happens? Suddenly all that communication is, that line is dead. Yeah, it's not a good place to be.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's always been kind of like a fear, I guess, and like I think it kind of comes back to like putting yourself in a hole or a divot. But yeah, man, that's some again, I didn't want you to have to go to that extent and going into deciphering, but yeah, that's some fantastic knowledge and stuff like that. And you're right.
Sure, I'll try to give shorter answers.
No. I know I didn't mean it like that. I just didn't want it to seem like this was me, like, hey, like. So what's the secret? You know, it's like,
What's
the secret? Yeah, give me your all that time you went to school for marketing, everything like that. I want you to dump that right now. Like, this is what this is about. This is the only reason why I'm having you on the podcast, is because I want you to tell me everything. No,
make me Insta famous.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, and that's what I meant by it. I just didn't want you to have to implore too that much. But yeah, that is fantastic, and I agree. It's something that I've noticed, and man, you hit the nail on the head, because TikTok is something that I don't really have much, you know, I don't have an account. You know, actually, I think I have an account set up, and it was mostly just so I had the name for it if I needed it. But I have no idea how to utilize it. And I think you're right. Like, you're 100% right. But I know brands are using it, even like popular streamers, et cetera, whether it be games or whatever. They're utilizing it to some extent, whether it just be mini clips or something, you know. But it's always been something I've just never, like, I guess if I sat down and like took time, I could probably like figure out an aspect or a way I could go about it. But you're right. It's a foreign beast. It's a weird thing. It's kind of funny. Like, I have like a hatred towards it, because this isn't what Vine is. This is what, you know, Vine should still be around and this wouldn't exist, kind of thing.
I still miss Vine.
Dude,
I
same,
love,
dude.
like, if I'm having a bad day and I get home, I just go on YouTube and I'm like, best of Vines, and I watch like 20 minutes of it, and I feel better about myself.
Absolutely. Like, I think they have like on YouTube, like Vine compilations of like from month, like the most popular Vine. It's wild, man. It's kind of like, it kind of blows my mind. It ceases to exist. Insane. Yeah,
it's crazy. And it's crazy how Instagram and, you know, TikTok, for the large part, copied the Vine model, but Vine still went out of business.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know how that works, but.
Yeah, whatever. Well, I think they sold it, and then as soon as they sold it, they actually like completely shut it down, if I remember correctly, or something.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I think Twitter bought it, and then as soon as they bought it, then they shut it down, or maybe it was Instagram. I don't know. I think one of the bigger tech giants that was competing with purchased it out for an insane amount of money. But besides the point, so one thing I think would be really cool is to talk about. We talk about merchandising and stuff like that, and you know, and all, you know, creating a brand and stuff. But let's talk about something that you released just recently too, and it's currently May 21st. So if this is published next week, then you may be a week behind. You may be a day late, dollar short, but. Let's talk about your little sticker pack, man. You just released some stickers. When's the last time you had some stickers available?
That's a great question, and it feels I'm very humbled to be considered even worthy of this discussion with my, you know, couple of sticker designs that I have on a website. But I do appreciate you know, the shout out. The first time I did stickers was, you know, really kind of, I don't know if we call it grassroots, but it was collecting names one by one, putting them in a Google spreadsheet and handwriting envelopes. It was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I got my buddy Tough Ass Tats. He's an artist and a tattoo artist. He's a great guy. And I was like, hey, I want you to, you know, design me this hog head in the American classic tattoo style. And that was the first sticker I ever had, the first like moniker or visual like character that represented my Instagram account. So it was you know, a small but you know, important milestone. Yeah. And I recently, you know, brought some of those back just because I think it's, you know, I still think it's a cool design. Don't do anything you don't think is cool, right? You should, you know, be a fan of your own stuff. And so I brought those back and got some other designs and some other stuff on the site, just because, you know, I'm trying to evolve and you know, be in the right places and diversifying, you know, my communications, so to speak, right? If Instagram goes down, you know, what am I going to do? What other, you know, channels have I got to stay in contact with people?
Absolutely. And I think people take that for granted too, like you mentioned earlier. But yeah, so Tough Ass Tats, dude, I actually started following him not too long ago, and you know, just a cool. I think it was when I saw that he was tattooing someone in the dark, and I was like, I started like laughing. I was like, oh my god, what the hell is this?
Yeah,
you know,
that was down in Gorda.
Yeah, and I think was that at one of Little Warm Fuzzy's functions, dude?
Yeah. So a couple of us went down to Matagorda, which is down here in South Texas.
Very cool.
Interestingly enough, I don't do tattoos. Like I don't do those on my body, but I love the tattoo art style. So I paid him to design me some stuff. But they did what we believe is the first tattoo in the dark. So everybody had nods on. They were in a dark room, and he tatted up a few people, and you can see the video. It's pretty funny. But that was a fun trip.
That's hilarious, man. But yeah, no. Aside from that, but yeah, the styling of it is always really cool, and I feel like I kind of like, as soon as you had said like you were bringing it back, it was a classic pack and stuff like that, and I kind of like, it kind of seemed familiar, but if it had been a while. So that's why I was curious when it was. But yeah, I love that styling of like the traditional Americana kind of styling with this like hard black lines with shading and stuff like that. Just aesthetically so pleasing. And I had chatted with it in a podcast before with actually the one I did as I was getting a tattoo during the podcast. But he had even said that that's like, still it's very popular, but it's actually not the most popular, but kind of a gold standard,
Yeah, I'm hoping I can get him to do some more work for me in the future. He did some really cool stuff for Noveske, that Noveske and A&R Designs. They did like a holster combination. Yeah. I've got one of their mag pouches that's pretty sweet. So he's done a lot of cool stuff. I'm hoping he can do more, more stuff for me. Shoot, what were you saying like right before this? I totally blanked on what I was going to say.
Not 100% sure. I guess it was just in regards to the stickers and stuff. But
totally forgot. I had something I was going to say. Never mind. We can edit this out.
No. We'll leave it, dude. We'll leave it because that's natural, dude. That's natural because that's me.
Make it organic.
Yeah, it's very organic. Dude, I blank out all the time, and it's just mostly because as I tell people, I'm kind of like a goldfish or like a bird when it comes to tinfoil. And like as soon as I see something shiny, if I don't stay on topic, then I'm just like, okay, next thing. But yeah,
it'll come back to me.
We'll diverge it and we'll just bam.
It's Friday. We're tired. We'll get there eventually.
Exactly. But yeah, I know exactly what stickers you're talking about because I remember I actually ordered that sticker pack from Noveske, and like the one that I remember seeing in there that always resonates a lot for me is like there's like a little like lollipop with a scorpion inside of it. Yeah. And the shading was really cool, and I was like, man, it would be so cool if you could make it like transparent in the back where like the shading was coming through so you could put the sticker somewhere. And I tried to do that, and unfortunately I guess something with the gradient, I guess on a clear backer, it kind of becomes difficult. But yeah, really cool.
Crazy?
Yeah.
This is crazy. That is literally what I was just going to say that I blanked on talking about gradients.
Wild.
I was like, I knew it would come back, and you brought it up. It was like clockwork. Because that gradient is so common in that art style, right? Yeah. Classic American tattoo style, but it's so hard to print. You can't really do a woven patch. It's really hard to get the printer to get it right, the correct, contrast and gradient. It's really hard to do it on a shirt of any kind because they want, only a couple of colors every print run. But it just looks so good, which is, why I love it.
Absolutely. It is, and it's funny because it's curbed some designs from going on shirts just because, like you said, it's very difficult to put on there. There's ways to do it, like in a gradient of like one color, but it's like different tones of it. But it just doesn't come off as clean like it does like on an actual design or a stick or even a tattoo for that matter. Like comes through perfectly on a tattoo. And but on like a sticker, it's like the perfect platform. But yeah, that one sticker was just so iconic to me when I remember getting that pack, and it's kind of like left a lasting impression. A bunch of them that were in that pack were really, really cool, like the traditional like eagles that was on there, and the mountain, and not the mountain, the volcano. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. That scorpion lollipop is pretty stinking cool. That was the one that I purchased for my M4 mag pouch because it's the one I love the most. Yeah. I remember offering my son. I got we can talk about guns in a minute. I got a couple of Noveske rifles, but I offered my son the lollipop, and I got a picture of his face. I'll send it to you. He was like so excited for this lollipop, but then like mortified that there was like this bug in it. I think I've still got it in the box in my closet.
I'll have to give a shout out to I don't want to say his name because I don't want him to get spammed because I think he likes to stay kind of low key. But if you're listening, you know who you are. Your name begins with an M. So I'll just leave it just like that. But I need to get him to get me one of those lollipops, dude. But yeah, man, it's wow. We can go ahead and shift into guns. That's a good segue. So I will say people have asked me a couple times what I've been shooting the most or what I've been enjoying shooting. Coincidentally, I will go ahead and say it's been the Noveske rifle that I had that I kind of got together. I guess the Noveske Navy. Nice, man, dude. And it's system wise, it's probably very, very similar to the one that you were able to get. That's like the collaboration with Superior Defense, right? Is that what
you're so you're talking about the clone that they saw like a bunch of SEALs had recently training? Yeah, that thing's cool. Yeah, there's like a 5.56 and a 300 black, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty much. I'm trying to think. It's very similar. So they have the only difference is it's on a Gen 3 upper with the NSR rail, and then it's just but it's on a standard Gen 1 lower receiver. But it's all specifically, and I have actually a blog post I put up. I don't normally do blogs too much, but I did put one on because I had a couple people ask me about specs and parts and stuff, and what I'm able to detail, I threw in there, and so people can reference that, and I'll have it linked if you're really interested, or you can just go on my website. But yeah, it's a very cool rifle, man, and they kind of got it all specced out, and of course it's for high-speed dudes, and they have 2 upper receivers basically for 1 lower, and 300 blackout, like you said, in 5.56. But I do like yours because you actually have like the PDW stock on yours, right?
Yeah.
Or one of yours.
So I've got, so I've got there's 2 main guns I'm shooting right now, the Noveske 9 and then the self-def, Noveske, as I jokingly call it. Which I thought was more similar. I'm realizing now that the Navy clone is a Gen 1 lower. I thought it was like basically the N4, Gen 3 all the way through, but there are some differences now that you bring that to my attention. So yeah, I got those a couple months ago. I just got lucky on the drop. You know, I didn't know anyone. I didn't ask for any hookups or anything like that to get that rifle. I just got on and hit refresh 100 times like everybody else did, and just got really lucky. But a lot of guys took that NoDef pistol as it was sold and put it right back on Gunbroker. But I was like, you know what? I mean,
it is what it is. It's the market.
They were going for like $6,000, so I'm not gonna harp on them too much. But I was like, you know what? I really like this gun. I'm gonna buy it to shoot it. I'm gonna run it really hard at the range, get it really dirty, because that's what I bought it for. So I've been having a lot of fun with that. It's just got a basic Magpul stock on it right now. Mm-hmm. I've got, let's see, the Noveske light mount on there I like a lot. I've got the high rise, the giraffe mount, as they call it, from Unity Tactical, which I think is pretty neat. It's a great little gun. And the fact that it's tanadized and kind of got that gold look is pretty fun as well. The other gun I'm shooting that's set up almost exactly the same as the Noveske 9. Mm-hmm. And it's not a gun that a lot of people really have, I don't think. There's only a couple of people. Corey from Superior Defense is one of them. There's a couple of guys who actually are at Noveske that I see shooting them occasionally. But everybody is leaning towards Space Invader, the Space Baby, all those little compact pistols and rifles. And I liked the Noveske 9 because you could put a stock on it. It was 10.5. So what I could do is basically put the same finger stop from Arasaka, the same PEC, the same, Mod Light mini button on there, the same, Noveske light mount that integrates into the PEC, and essentially have exactly the same layout between 2 guns of, 2 different calibers. Now, the plans for the Noveske 9 started way before ammo was really, really expensive. So I was hoping it was going to be my main range gun, shoot a bunch of 9 through it, high round count, just blasting away, no care in the world. And then the world imploded in 2020 when ammo cost a ton. So that bet didn't really pay off, but it's still a super fun gun. Straight Colt mags are they're really fun to shoot. So
dude,
if I'm at the range, it's typically one of those 2 guns.
Yeah, I mean, and on top of that, the aesthetics of a straight 20, a straight mag, are just really cool. I don't know, I remember seeing it, and I think people were kind of upset that it wasn't a Glock mag, maybe. I can't remember. But honestly, man, you're already paying this much. Just get the. I think the looks of the Colt 20 mags, the straight mags, are just straight. They just look. I don't know. It just looks right together.
It's very aesthetic. I put an A2 grip and the old it's a replica, but it's the Colt N1, the car stock that's really compact. And my love for those stocks goes right back to when I first got into night vision. I was running a lot of SUP mod, the B4 or the enhanced stock, and it's got a big old rubber butt pad on it. And when you're climbing in and out of a truck or a side by side or any kind of mobility vehicle when you're out hunting pigs, it just gets caught on everything. So I needed a really small, compact stock that didn't have a butt pad. And it just happened to be this Colt N1, and it's got this really cool old Vietnam aesthetic, and it's really compact. And now a couple of my guns have that same stock, because I like it so much. So with the Noveske 9, I wanted to harken back to, there's a lot of similarities with the old original Colt SMGs, right? The straight Colt mags, direct blowback, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to put the Colt A2 and the Colt N1 stock on there and kind of pay homage to that little tradition, right, of the old Colt submachine guns, which I thought were so cool. Yeah,
no, absolutely, and I'm 100% with you, because that was the feel and the vibes that I got from it was like you said, a homage to the Colt one. And there's been times I remember at one point I was looking around and trying trying to find one of those Colts, but they're expensive. Like they're hard to find. So, but
yeah,
absolutely. I love the Colt and like those little N1 car stocks too, man. Kind of brings me up that I think B5 was doing like a replica of it, and Brownells has done a replica of a 1 and 2. I have one right now, but similar. It's kind of a similar aspect. I've actually been running mine on my, I guess you can call it a recce rifle, kind of like the 14.5 URGI build. But I've been running it on that one, and it, like you said, it's just so comfortable and able to maneuver and kind of just position, and then it just, I don't know, it just feels right at home. It's a sweet little stock.
I think I accidentally called them. I maybe accidentally called them B4. I meant B5. My bad. Correction.
Please.
But yeah, I totally hear you. On a gun where you don't need like a really firm cheek weld, when you've already got a 1.93 or some kind of high-rise mount, and you don't need that cheek weld, like a car stock is awesome because you can collapse it all the way. If you've got plates or something on, you can get it right nice deep in the pocket of your shoulder. It's not gonna, be super bulky. And when you're getting in and out of a vehicle, it's super compact and super convenient for that reason too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Do you run the little? I'm trying to remember what's the brand name called, but it's like basically a little buffer pad that kind of is like I don't think anyone like actually uses it as a buffer pad, like an actual like stock pad. Everyone just uses it for like either length of pull or just aesthetics. So, I'm right I'm in that same boat. Like, and one aspect I love the way it looks. It doesn't fit correctly. So if you buy one and you're like, man, this doesn't even work together. Yes, it's not supposed to. You have to zip tie it. But
yeah, I like absolutely. I mean, my whole like foray into guns was really in the clone world. Like I bought my first rifle. I moved to Texas like almost 4.5 years ago, I think it is. Bought my first rifle, and I was like, what's the coolest gun at that point? In my mind that I could make. I didn't just want some, off the shelf, whatever, somebody else's idea of a cool gun. I was like, I'm going to replicate, what these really cool dudes are using overseas to kill terrorists, right? And that's when I discovered Block 2 and Mark 18s and M4A1s, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, I could get an M4A1 with a 14.5-inch barrel and pin and weld it, and, I'd be good to go. And that was like the first rifle I ever bought. So coming from the clone world where people are paying like,
obscene.
I think it was $330 something for an M3X light that has like 15 lumens, right?
God,
an incandescent bulb, just because it was true to that time period or that aesthetic, or to complete that build. I totally get it. I mean, I've seen a lot of the butt pads on the N1 stocks for like MRE builds and stuff like that. I think they're cool, just purely for the fact they look cool. I've never put one on, or never, I've never needed one. I think honestly, my shoulder has been more bruised from dry firing and shooting with some of my Magpul stocks than I've ever gotten from a hard plastic Colt replica stock. But yeah, I mean, looking cool is rule number one. So make sure it always looks good.
100%. Yeah, I'm about to say like that was like the only thing I will say like I benefited from using that little. I can't remember what the name of it. It's something like Matthews keeps on popping up, but it's not Matthews. But it's some weird like. You would think it was like some Amazon spam kind of like manufacturer, but it's legit. Like that's the correct one, but it doesn't fit on there well whatsoever. But other than getting a good length of pull, that's about it. Like that's all it's good for. But and of course, like you said, looking cool is number one. Very cool, man. So I kind of want to talk about that little 9mm a little bit too, because that's kind of like one thing that I dabble in and out of. Is kind of like considering getting like a little sub, like kind of similar to that style, but something always kind of stops me. Do you run yours suppressed at all, or is it currently, or do you have something in jail, or?
Yeah, so I'm hoping just a couple of weeks away from an Omega 9K from Silencer Coat. That's what I'm going to put on there with a little tri-lug. That's the goal. Once I get that, the gun will kind of be, complete. It's fun without it, but when you're shooting at the range with your buddies, you don't want to be the savage that's bump firing 32 rounds out of a Colt straight mag with no can on the end. So from what I hear, it's an amazing can. A lot of people love it. It's really lightweight. It's also very good at sound suppression. So I'm excited for it. It might interest me in like 300 blackout now that I've got a can that will do that. That might be the next step. But given ammo prices, and I talk to guys who are shooting honey badgers and stuff like that in 300 blackout, and they're not having the best time right now being able to shoot in any significant quantity because of pricing.
I can 100% attest to that. So as someone who owns a MCX and 300 Blackout, and I currently have a Nomad long on it, so it's like the more a little bit lengthier Nomad from Dead Air, and it's basically just more or less just to help with sound, and it's definitely more geared towards like more sound than everything else, but it does its job. But man, it's like kind of like what you said when you kind of were getting this gun and getting it set up, and then kind of like the timetables hit and everything kind of just shitty timing. 100% the same thing. Beginning of January and February, I was like, okay, I'm gonna dabble in the 300 Blackout game a little bit because prices aren't too bad. It seems pretty proven, and then the MCX is kind of a cool, different platform, so that way I can kind of get into something that's geared towards suppression, like the Hollywood kind of like closest to Hollywood sound you can get, and it was just like watching everything like just come crashing down. I'm like, damn, dude, it's just the worst time to get into it, or should have had some already set aside. So I get that.
There's a couple of little like subcompact 9mm that I like. I've got buddies who both just built TP9s from B&T, which is kind of a classic. But the first time I ever saw one of those was a couple of years ago. A buddy had one. That was my first kind of exposure to it. It's funny looking because they bought the design from Steyr and kind of improved it, the safety, and made some updates and things like that. But the APC-9 Pro K is a pretty neat gun, I think, in my opinion. I've got a couple of buddies who bring them to the range. When you first get it, the safety is super, super difficult to select, to the point where you flick it back on and off safe, and it will like snap your finger and like hurt the thumbnail and your bone. It like flicks you so hard. I know a lot of guys are changing out the selector spring for that reason, but besides that, it's a really nice little package. That would be the only other little 9mm that really has my eye beyond the Noveske 9, but. Like all things, they're above MSRP if you find one right now to even have the opportunity to buy it.
Yeah, and that's just kind of like one of those things too. And very similar circumstance. I think the thing that I'd always wanted was, I think like a lot of people, kind of like you mentioned, like the clone and everything like that. And for the longest time, I've been just so kind of like hyped on getting an MP5, but the cost of them and like just like even before COVID, like the availability of the newer model that they released that has the tri-lug, not like the big fat whatever flash hider they have on the front. Man, they're just so expensive, man. They've always been expensive, and then I guess it's the roller back stuff. It's just hard to produce on top of that.
Roller lock is an art to get like a really, really good one. It's one of those things where like, my buddies will bring an MP5K to the range, and that's like my favorite MP5 of all time. Absolutely love it. I always ask to shoot it. I always want to, take a look at it and hold it because I think it's just the coolest little gun. But to get a really good one, like a really nice one, you've got to pay for it. Yeah. So there's not really a cheap option. Like if you're going to do it, jump in with both feet and do it really, really well. That's kind of my plan down the road when I get one. Yeah. But until then, I'll just shoot other people's for now.
and that's kind of like the mantra I think I've kind of taken as well, and I agree. So, but very, very cool, man. Very, very cool. So I'm about to say, and it was funny that you mentioned that you don't see very many other people with that Noveske 9, and you're right, man. Did you not have like an interest in like the ones with like the PDW stock? But I know you said you're kind of like geared towards like the kind of the homage to the Colt and everything like that, but did you look at? Didn't they come out with like the Ghetto Blaster or something like that? Was pretty much, was it pistol caliber, or was it only rifle caliber?
There were a couple of calibers they did for Space Invaders. I don't want to misquote anyone or anything like that, but I know there are a couple of different models out there with different configurations. So the Ghetto Blaster, the Space Invader, are really cool guns. I've shot those as well and looked at those, and they're stinking cool. There was a piece of it to me that was like, this is less common, so therefore there's kind of, it's cooler for that reason, right? It's a little bit more unique. It's less, we haven't seen this quite as much. The fact that you could put, regular stock on it was appealing to me. The Q stocks are cool, and the Noveske one has more positions, right? It has like a midway point versus a Q stock that only is in or out. And Q make a lot of really, really cool guns that, you know, I would love to buy a fix one day. Kevin, if you're listening, you know, shoot me a DM. But, you know, I wanted a little bit more flexibility than just being tied to that one Q stock design. So the fact that it was 10.5 it was okay. There's a video, the guys from Noveske, rumor has it, they used a bandsaw to actually cut theirs down, you know, a couple of inches. I'm not quite there yet if I'm going to chop that barrel or not. 10.5 is fine. It would be nice for it to be a little bit shorter and still have the flexibility of any stock you want on the back, but overall it's muscle memory, right? It feels almost exactly the same as another N4 or the Nodef that I have, so I can go back and forth, and, you know, it just feels natural.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is. It's like just looking at it, it looks natural too on the gun too. I mean, it's very nice, clean. So I'm a little jealous because I've kind of like gone in and out of kind of like, you know, looking into that market, but very cool, man. Very cool. So, and then you have the suppressor hopefully on the way. Yeah, I know. I'll say a prayer for you, dude. And hopefully next couple of days, over the next couple of days. Are you just waiting on the stamp, or are you actually waiting on like confirmation and stuff?
Well, that's a good story. So I did the Form 4 back in January. Like, this is the current state of like tax stamps. We hate them. They shouldn't exist. Why do I have to go through this process? Like, that's all a given, right? We all believe that. In January, sent off the Form 4s, you know, it's the trust, so it's papered, like everything is working against me. It's going to take forever. So I sent it off, finally got it all done in January. You know, I call up, was it January, February, end of March, hey, have you received this? No, we don't even have it in the system yet.
Oh, no.
I'm like, you cashed my check like middle of January. I know someone has it. And they like, no kidding, said, we need at least 90 days to scan your papers into the system. And I was like,
oh my God,
what other entity or organization or business could possibly like get away with that in today's day and age? Like, if I told my boss it would take 90 days to scan some papers, like, I wouldn't have a job for very long. But for some reason, they can do that and get away with it. I called up a couple of weeks ago and I was like, hey, has anybody even seen my paperwork? Can you find it in the system? They're like, oh yeah, we have it in the system. I was like, great, that only took 4 months. And they're like, but it hasn't been assigned to anyone yet, so it's just kind of sitting there. I'm like, you haven't even started the process, the 9-month process, and we're already like almost halfway through the year. It's kind of driving me nuts. But I will share this little tip that I don't think a lot of people know about. Maybe you do. Maybe I think it's more secret than it really is. But there's something in the stamp process, right? It's called an NTN. And that's when they look at your paperwork and they send it off to do the next check, and you get a number that comes back that's an approval number that they apply to your stamp, and then it gets formalized and you get a notification that your Form 1 is approved. What a lot of people don't know is you can call up the ATF, ask to get in contact with your examiner, get their email, and ask them to forward that NTN to other examiners who are looking at other stamps that you have at the time. And this is how people get things batch approved. So I've done this a couple of times now. Your NTN, that approval, is good for 6 months. So if you know that you have a really long wait because you're paper forming a suppressor that's going to be 10 months, do an E-Form 1 somewhere along the way, and there's a chance, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not promising this, there's a chance that it might speed things up just a little bit because they can look at that NTN and then forward it off to the right people. I've had some success with it. I've had success with it in the past. Folks might as well try it to see if it works, no promises, but once you know what to ask for, please forward my NTN to my examiner. Sometimes, it can make stuff happen.
Yeah, it makes sense too, especially if you're like one of those people who are like in the plan of, like you say, getting a couple tax stamps, or if you're going to be SBRing a lower and then, putting it on something. So, man, I might end up doing that because I know for a fact there was one that I was like kind of going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to go ahead and just tax stamp it. But if that can kind of like help expedite the process, then I guess that'll kind of help me make that final decision. I guess. But I did not know that, man.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really have anything to lose, right? You have to call, send an email, see what they can do. I've been delayed in the past because, I never get a proceed on NICS for whatever reason. So it goes to the FBI for like 4 months. And my first can I ever did was 411 days. And this was back long before, back long before there was any panic buying, right? It wasn't like it is right now. Everybody's waiting a long time. And thankfully, they kind of got faster and faster over time, probably because, I don't know, they saw me in the system and realized I wasn't like a crazy person or something. If you're one of those people that you're going to be waiting a really long time, it's worth it to consider, filing in a Form 1 and then try to get that NTN passed over.
Interesting, dude. Yeah, I did not know that. I guess I was never aware, but I know that there's, I want to say I remember something on like AR15.com, people talking about like a batch process, but I didn't know like the specifics on how people were doing it, or like, honestly, a lot of times I just figured it was just chance of luck. Like, got a bunch of stuff at the same time and everything kind of just happened to work in their favor. So I just kind of, took it with a grain of salt, but we'll see.
It might depend on your examiner as well. Yeah. Like, I've got buddies who are in, groups on Facebook for building Form 1 cans, and they're in frequent conversation with their examiners about what's approved, because there's always this research process, right?
Right.
Pending research is like the worst thing ever, because it's this, awful limbo state where you don't really know what's going on with your stamp. But there's an ATF lady, I think her name is Patricia, and she's like famous for helping people out and like pushing things through the system to get it sped up and connecting you with people. I'm like, she might be the only helpful person in the entire ATF organization, right? Who is like making life just slightly less painful in dealing with them, right? This lady, her name's Patricia. So she's kind of, it's a running joke on some of those groups, like, just email Patricia, she'll get you sorted out. So
that's hilarious, dude.
But anyway, we won't go down the ATF rabbit hole.
Yeah, no.
It's awful, and the ATF is just a terrible thing.
Yeah, well, I think everyone agrees this, at the end of the day, kind of that whole mindset, and so it's not worth kind of like droning on and on about it. But that is interesting, though. I did not know that, so I'll have to maybe put that to test and see how it goes. But I will say that I've always told people, especially if you buy something, as soon as you get your cash, your tax stamp cash, which normally happens a little bit after. Which is funny enough. I've had a couple people tell me recently that it's taken longer than it should have to get it cashed, but generally, it's not a bad habit to give them a call and just make sure everything is suture for what you just said. You just don't know if something like hiccup, they haven't received it, there's some kind of issue. It's nice to have a kind of just a reinforcement that everything's kind of squared away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll kind of move on from like firearms and stuff like that, and kind of jump in. So one thing I don't think people realize, and I meant to bring this up, we were talking about the stickers and stuff like that that you have come out with or brought back, I guess, is you actually, and I'll be honest, man, I think I told you this, I had no idea, but so you have your main, what would you consider as your main Instagram, Aganz?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a personal and everything like that.
Sure,
for pictures of my kids that goes to my mom and their grandparents. But the Aganz page is kind of more of a personal reflection. It's more of like me and what I'm doing, shooting, photography, things like that. The other page that I have is Multicam Black Gang, which kind of started unexpectedly. It was like probably 2 years ago. We can talk about Multicam Black, because that's a fun topic as well. But it really, one day, some buddies and I, two guys who are much cooler than I am. I've never been in the military. I've never done anything cool like that. I just take photos and enjoy guns because they're fun. But they were out at the range, and they had like their they had new Spiritus rigs in Multicam Black, and they had their G3s on in Multicam Black, and I was like, what is this pattern? Like, everybody's wearing Multicam. At that point, FDE was like the thing. Everybody had to be tan and FDE, like that was everybody's favorite. And I was like, this is interesting. Like this, I've never really noticed this pattern. It's always been the black sheep, right? Like nobody wears Alpine, nobody wears Multicam Black. This was probably two or 3 years ago. And I was like, hey, this is, it's different, for the same reason I bought the Noveske 9, because people weren't really doing it. It was a little bit unique. I was like, yeah, I'm going to, get a Spiritus rig and start, decking it out and get some of this Multicam Black stuff, because it looks kind of neat. I was always a little bit self-conscious that, wearing gear and shooting guns to the range felt a little bit like playing dress-ups, or like, playing armies or something. And I didn't ever want to give the ever perceived as someone who was like trying to be someone cool that they really were not, right? Like I said, I've never been in the Army. I'm never going to claim otherwise. Like I am who I am. And this Multicam Black pattern felt a little bit more unique, like something that I could wear without feeling like a poser, right?
Yeah.
So we all looked cute all at the range. We're all matching because we're shooting at the range with the boys, and everybody's got to look dress up and match because that's what we do. And then somebody was like tagging us in like all these reposts, and we were like, "Is this you? Is this like?" We didn't know who was running this page, and my buddy was like, "Well, the reposts are like super low energy and super low effort. Like, let's start our own repost page." And we'll share our own pictures that nobody's ever seen. Right. So I jumped on and I in spare of the moment called it Multicam Black Gang, created a page, and then the three of us, because we already had a lot of the gear, just started posting pictures, and the rest is kind of history. Never expected it to be a community or a group or Instagram or anything like that. But it just happened to be at the right time when everyone else was like, getting into it and thought it, was a cool pattern that they could be wearing as well. So since that point, we've done, collaborations, unique colorways, that we, purchase in bulk and, sell to, the community. A lot of cool stuff with Kilo and Vino Industries, and we bought, special orders from Cry and done all this, this stuff that I think is really cool, but I never would have envisioned in the beginning when it was just a little repost page, for gear that we thought was cool. So it's been a fun ride, but I've been very fortunate to have it grow the way that it's grown and to meet people on the way who helped me to get it there.
Absolutely, man. And then I was about to say, it was kind of funny because at the time I had no idea that was actually actually I think I was kind of like mocking like some camos and stuff like that. But I think you brought up a really good point, because I would say I'm very, 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 very similar thought process when it comes to like, going to the range and stuff like that. And I've always had that same mantra, like I don't ever want to come off as a poser or playing dress up, like you said, or trying to, imitate people who have done it and, or have done the real thing or dedicated their life or have, I guess technically lost their life, but same thing. But it seems like that's kind of an interesting topic almost within itself, because I think it's more accepted across the board. Like it's just, but on top of that, so Black Multicam. So what kind of things do you guys offer? Obviously, it's a whole other aspect within itself. And so one, I didn't realize there was three people, but two, what all do you guys offer as like what kind of products? I know, like you said, Kilo Tactical does some stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So it's primarily me. I run the page. I own the account. My other two friends, I'll try to give them hookups on, patches and stickers and things that we're doing. But they were kind of the feature. They were the focus of the content early on, but they're not really part of the business. It's really more so been collaborations more recently with guys, like I mentioned, Kilo and Vino. So let me bring up a couple of examples. A few that I really like. We just did puffers, which I thought were really, really cool with Kilo. So Mike over at Kilo is a good friend of mine, an inspiration. He runs a really smart business, a really cool business that I aspire to be everything that he is. He's a great guy. But he did some puffers that just look like North Face jackets. And even in the warm Texas weather, I still try to wear mine whenever I can, because it's just such a cool piece. We did some joggers and some shorts with him recently that were really fun. With Vino, we did Cry Shooters caps, which you can't get in Multicam Black, right? You got a special order them. You can only get in Multicam. We did JPC 2s back in August, right before like a bunch of other people did them. We got really lucky there that we were first to market, because there was a huge influx of Multicam Black JPC 2s that hit the market, and I think tanked the price to some degree, but for those who got them, they still, retained their sale value and stuff. I still wear mine all the time. I love it. But besides that, it's just, it's little things. It's patches, it's stickers. We did some shirts with House Party Distro. They're another really good brand to follow. Really cool guys, John and Corey, who run that. But yeah, we've got stuff planned in the future. We're trying to get a little bit less tactical, right? Like, Could we do something that is, more focused on daily driving in a vehicle or camping or, you name it, other activities that aren't just, gun guys with beards, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's essentially Multicam Black Gang in a nutshell.
Yeah, so that's pretty impressive within itself. So how old is that account, or like when did you guys really like officially start it? Because I kind of remember it being more of a hashtag, and then at one point I was like, I didn't know this was actually a thing. Like I didn't know this was actually a group for a while. So like you kind of like hit the nail on the head. So I had no idea. But when did it start?
Yeah, I think it was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
I don't know if my memory is going to serve me very well. I'd have to scroll all the way down to see when our very first post was. But it feels about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. But let me go back to, we did some Defender stuff. Half-Face Blades collab, that was one of my favorites.
That's cool. Oh, yeah.
Dude, I would love to get a Half-Face Blades hatchet. Some of those hatchets go for like $800-900, sometimes more. They're just, they're works of art. They're beautiful.
Well, that's what's going to be my next question was like, what's been your favorite like release? Because the one thing I was going to say was, with Multicam Black, I think the one time, like the first time I was like introduced to it, I think was from the Van shoes. And for some reason, I cannot remember the name of that company that make like unique Vans and shoes and stuff like that. Oh man, who is that?
DEFCON?
Yes, DEFCON. Oh, okay. I just realized you said that. But yeah, DEFCON. Yeah, have they released anything recently in a long time? But I remember that specifically.
They haven't. The last one that I saw was with LBT. They did some, was it Mask Gray or Ranger Green? I can't remember. But that was the last drop that I'm aware of. That's kind of their style though, right? Like one and done. If they were going to repeat styles, like it would really just kind of defeat the whole purpose of, the special quantities that they're doing, something really special in small batch. I don't think I got, when they did the Multicam Black ones that were all black with the black sole, I got lucky on that drop and got a pair. I did not get any of the drop before that, but yeah, I mean, that was where like gun culture and shoe culture kind of collided, and people were really mad that they were out of stock and they didn't know why they were more than regular Vans, and there was just a major disconnect in expectations, I think, between the two cultures that had collided. And we face this every time we drop a product. Like the JPCs, I think, is a perfect example. A JPC 2.0 doesn't come in Multicam Black, right? You have to get it specially made, and there's minimum purchase orders, and we paid a lot of money to get 100 made, 50 medium, 50 large. Yeah. And, for someone like us, we're not a dealer, we're not the DOD. Cry is going to charge us MSRP, right? Yeah. So when three of us go in on this deal and we bulk buy and, we put our money on the line, and we got to make money at the end of the day to keep people invested in this business. It means that we're going to charge more than MSRP, right? We got to charge more than what we paid for them. And there was a lot of people that were mad that they could go to cry.com and buy one in FDE for like $250, but ours were $499. And I just had to keep explaining this to people. I'm like, this is not the same as your FDE JPC 2.0, right? There's materials, there's the cost, there's the scarcity, there's, the fact that, we had to get these made specifically. There's so many factors involved that make it almost an entirely different product. And I think people are, starting to understand that, right? When you're a small business working in small batches, things cost a lot of money, right? If we had the economy of scale, if we had massive volume, we could probably, offer it for a little bit cheaper, but it's really hard to do, to get an American-made product made specially in a small batch. It's just very expensive.
Yeah, and that's just the nature of the beast too. And I think sometimes it comes down to people being, I don't think ignorance is the right word, but maybe just not understanding, kind of like you said. And then, when they kind of understand like the concept of, like you said, having to take a risk on something. Additionally, it's a special order. It's like a one-off thing. That kind of has like some, that should come with a little bit of an entry fee for it as well. Hard work put in, and then of course risk. There should be a little bit of a payoff. You should be able to get something off of it, not just the same cost that you guys paid. That's just kind of, you had to make money.
Yeah, and you know, we want to be as fair as we can with those prices, right? We're not trying to rip anybody off, but there came a point where I was just kind of beating my head against a wall, and someone would come in and be like, "Why are you charging double MSRP?" Blah blah blah, and you know, Instagram gives an equal voice to everyone, right? Which is kind of unfortunate.
Good and bad, yeah.
Yeah, right. So these people that normally you would just kind of ignore suddenly have a megaphone. And there was a point where I told one guy, I don't remember who he was, I was like, you know, if you're looking for something that's much, much cheaper and is readily available and you can buy it on Amazon, like go buy Condor or, you know, any other brand that's within your price range, because you don't really understand what this product is or who it's intended for. Yeah. So I try not to be grumpy with people, because I'm really not a grumpy guy, but when you've said it so many times and they don't really understand what they're looking at, it gets kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I can totally understand it, and there's been a couple of cases of that popping up recently, and I won't indulge into it, but yeah, I 100% understand, and I come from the same background. So something else, I think we kind of, I just realized we've kind of hit a bunch of topics without me even kind of like, you know, formalizing it. So, but you know, something I think is pretty interesting is, or I won't say interesting, but something that I am fascinated by is kind of like your passion with with hunting, and it kind of ties in back into what we discussed earlier about like night hunting and stuff like that, and you had kind of mentioned it briefly. But when did you really get into you know, pig hunting and hog hunting and stuff like that?
That's a good question. So it was probably back in 2017, I think, is when I went on my first hog hunt. Texas is a little bit tricky from a public land perspective. Yeah. Everything is privately owned. The only way you can hunt outdoors is if you have a deer lease, you're at some kind of paid hunt, or your family or friends or someone you know actually owns the property. So to come across a couple of 100 acres, like, you just have to make connections and make friends, and, you know, get together with people that you trust and earn their trust so that they invite you out, and obviously respect their land and all that kind of stuff. Be a good guest, and you might get invited out again. But I've been very fortunate to, you know, again, through Instagram, to find people who are like-minded, who have night vision and, you know, want to go shoot some pigs, because pigs are just incredibly destructive to the Texas wildlife and natural habitats, things like that. If you've ever been out on a property, a ranch, or what have you, that has a number of pigs, you can tell where they've bedded down or where they've been eating, because it looks like the field got mortared, right? There's craters where they don't just eat the corn and the plants on top, they eat all the way down to the root, and they dig up the dirt, so like nothing is left. And that's bad from a crop perspective, because they're stealing that, or the corn, or whatever you're feeding, you know, livestock. But then you've got to get farm equipment, trucks and tractors and cows through that paddock again, or through that field, and it's got giant dips and bumps and, you know, stuff that'll break your equipment, or, you know, break a cow's legs. So for a number of reasons, they're awful. So when we go out there, it's pest control. Yeah. I've never processed a pig, or some people like pork sausage. But the first time you like pick up a giant dead hog and you're like, this thing smells terrible. It's, you know, covered in ticks. It's got worms and fleas and who knows what, you know, intestinal bugs and other kind of nasty things it's got inside. You don't really have a stomach for eating them because what you're doing is pest control, right? Yeah. You're protecting the existing wildlife, because they're an invasive species. They were introduced. You know, they're going to eat the corn that's meant for, you know, the cows, and that means we get less, you know, beef and steak and that good stuff that we need. So, yeah, I don't eat them, and that's okay. I've reconciled that within myself as a hunter, right, and my ethics of saying, hey, this is not eating, this is pest control, this is, you know, protection of Texas and other things that are more important. So we try to go out whenever we can. I've got friends that will hunt, you know, 3-4 hours and feel very content. And I've got friends that go from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and I'm wiped out for like 3 days after we get back. But it's always a fun time. And I'll let you jump in. I know you probably got a question, but there's just something exhilarating with how elusive pigs are and how surprisingly intelligent they are to evade you consistently, and then boom, they suddenly pop up, you know, over the crest of a hill or around a corner. It's just, it really is kind of like, you know, an exhilarating, you know, adrenaline sport. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
jumping
absolutely.
out of the truck and, you know, running towards the pig, and it's like it's an action sport almost is what it feels like.
Yeah. So, like, you know, first of all, I have no judgment towards that because you're 100% right. The animal itself is, first of all, it's invasive. It's not even a natural natural animal that is keen to the United States, especially like in places of Texas. And I know around here, they're detrimental. Like, just like you said, 100%. They're just bastards, you know. They just destroy shit, go through, muck up, and especially when it comes to, like, you know, with here, we have a little more humid, swampy kind of like area, and so, like, if it rains, it pours, and then when you have all that rainfall and they come in, they just destroy everything or uproot everything on top of that with the rooting and the watering. Yep. It's terrible. It literally looks, like you said, like you described it perfectly. And that's how I was going to call it. It's like a mortar field, and that's what it looks like. You see it, and it's like it looks like bombs went off, like little mini bombs went off all over a field, and it's just like completely destroyed and stuff like that. So, regardless of what people think about the whole, I know there's a lot of I think a lot of people have like that background. And this may sound bad, or someone may get mad at me, but that's kind of a boomer mentality, especially like, oh, if you don't eat it, you don't eat what you kill. I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's one thing to be kind of like someone who is, I don't know, I don't want to say the word psychopath, but just enjoys killing things. That's one thing. But in the end of the day, if you can enjoy hunting, and on the top of that, it's accomplishing a task of removing pest and removing an animal that is invasive, that does destroy. And it's not just like for farmers too. So I know there's someone probably thinking, well, this is just benefiting the farmer. It benefits all wildlife too. It's surrounding wildlife as well. So
absolutely,
it's definitely more to that. So on that, man, I never even thought of the idea. Do you not eat any hog at all, or any pig or ham or pork whatsoever now, or is it just like wild game? Like,
no,
does it affect you?
Yeah. No, I love a good ham and cheese.
Okay.
Like I still eat a lot of pork. It's just the wild ones, that are, just eating, everything, anything and everything, and are really kind of nasty. But for me, we're out there because, we're fighting an invasive species, right? Trying to keep those numbers down. I think a lot of people, given the rise in popularity in hunting hogs, do understand the economic monetary gains to be had in tracking and selling, bringing in foreign, out-of-staters to come and hunt pigs and charging them top dollar. That's a very lucrative market, and that's, to some degree, it's great because it's bringing in more hands and more people to reduce the number of pigs that we have. But there might be some people out there who are, less incentivized now to reduce them because it's good money, and, I don't want to kill all the pigs. I just want to kill some of them so I've got more for my clients next weekend. You know what I mean? I think that mentality can exist. So we're out there trying to bag as many as we can. Hopefully people aren't trying to keep them around just to make money. Hopefully we can actually make a dent and reduce the population here in Texas, because it's last time I checked the data, I think it had kind of flatlined at about 1 million or so estimated hogs in Texas, but that's a discussion for another day. I'm not going to pick on those people, but like I said, it's exhilarating. You look at this pig that's sometimes a couple 100 pounds, and you're like, how are you so big and so fat, but so perfectly silent and so fast when you're trying to outsmart me in this field, right? And they are like meat blimp missiles, dude. I kid you not. And unless you're really nailing them with the right ammo, you can shoot them with 5.56 as long as your projectile is carefully, like a heavier grain projectile. Mm-hmm. Neck, head, or spine is really all that's going to take them down. You can shoot a pig center mass and it's going to keep running. It'll soak up 3 or 4 rounds and it'll die eventually, and we want to be respectful and kill them quickly and efficiently because we don't want suffering. But you'll shoot it 3 or 4 times, you'll never see it again. It will be hundreds of yards away, dying somewhere, silently, and that's the last you see of it as it runs off into the tree line. But it's a very exhilarating thing. I've never hunted deer, like sitting in a deer blind waiting for deer to come along, but
it's not fun.
It sounds cold. It sounds very cold. But when we're doing pigs, it's we're in a razor or side by side, or we're on quad bikes, and we are racing to try and catch up to some of these pigs that we've spotted because they're running full pelts, and you're stalking and managing the wind. And when you're out there, it's kind of like You've got your nods down so you can see in the dark. You're managing your scent. You've got, peltors or amps, whatever. So you've got superhuman hearing. I wear a plate carrier just because it's cheap insurance, but you're the deadliest thing out there. It's this crazy like apex predator feeling where you're like hunting and stalking and trying to outsmart this prey that you're going after. There's something primal, despite the fact that you're so technologically advanced. It feels very, very primitive and very wild in that moment, which I guess is the essence of hunting, going back to our ancestors. But
absolutely, yeah. And then on top of that, I mean, like you said, they're pretty savvy, pretty intelligent animals. Like I don't think they get credit for what they are, but they are very savvy. And again, like you said, they don't go down without a fight normally. But on top of that, they can actually be pretty dangerous too if put in the fight or flight mode of where they're unable to escape or get away and stuff. They can be kind of nasty little bastards too. So
I've never been charged, but I know that people have been charged by hogs. Like I think it's in Bulgaria. They do a lot of shotgun hunting with wild boars over there, and there's some crazy videos of them.
Oh my gosh, attacked. Yeah, that's
I've been fortunate, knock on wood.
Yeah, I've only heard of one story, and I had someone tell me that he was coming down from his deer stand, actually deer hunting, not actually going hog hunting and stuff like that, and he saw one across about 10 or 25 yards, like 10 to 20 yards away, and he went out to shoot it, and he did end up hitting it. It was a broadside shot, didn't kill it, and of course. It just, I guess maybe it was like one of those things where it was like in a mode of like, I'm going to die or, I have to fight to live, and charged him straight up.
Wow.
And dude, he had to stay in his stand for, I think he told me 6 hours. And
Whoa.
It would not leave. It could be one of those things where it's exaggerated a little bit, where he was probably in there for 30 minutes maybe. But he said that he had to stay in his stand for a couple hours and would not leave his stand and just kept on just basically thwacking the bottom of his stand. And then finally, it kind of I think lost all of that, energy and all of that adrenaline, and then kind of walled off and probably died shortly after because, like you said, some of those shots, they normally don't survive, but it just doesn't kill them immediately. But, it was just one of those things. He said he had five shells because, he doesn't take much, and then he had already... I think he had shot one deer earlier or something, some kind of scenario where he wasn't able to shoot his gun, or maybe he dropped it. I can't remember the story. It was a couple of years back, but because I don't know. It was wild though. So they can be kind of little bastards, but I couldn't imagine because I know here it's really, really thick brush, which also makes it so difficult to hunt them.
Yep.
Such thick brush here, lots of wooded area and stuff like that. And again, like I said, the swamps and stuff. Is it kind of like when you guys are going, so maybe, was it Warm Fuzzy who posted a video, and it was a wild fucking video of on a razor, and it was so, I saw it, I was like, damn, I need to go to fucking Texas. That, I was like, that is sick. Going through was multiple areas and just hauling ass, but that's what, as soon as you were telling me about hunting them down and driving on them, that's kind of what it reminded me of. But how is the brush and the terrain when you are dealing with them? What's kind of describe that?
Yeah, that's a good question. On the topic of razors, Warm Fuzzy brought his out to the gore to shoot, and he was kind of cruising around. That's a sweet pig rig. There's one other guy on Instagram. His name's Black Rifle, and he's got a 249 saw that he mounted on his. And there's kind of two approaches, right? The run and gun, guns blazing, I'm going to outrun you because I'm faster, and I've also got a belt fed, so you're toast. But then there's the more methodical approach, which is typically what I do because I just don't have a razor with a belt fed on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And four of us will get in a pickup, and each person has their quadrant, and they'll be scanning. Usually handheld thermal is what we'll use, and we're just looking for any kind of signature out in the field. So here in Texas, there's a lot of wooded tree lines and woods that separate plots of land. Mm-hmm. So we'll try to get out, let's say it's 450 acres, scan a big open area, look for any kind of sign, because if you're going to stalk on foot, you want to make sure that you have a potential target, otherwise you're just walking endlessly in the dark, all night, right? Hoping you find something. So typically what we'll do is, there'll be a sounder of pigs, which is what you call a group or a herd of pigs. Mm-hmm. There might be one or two larger, adult pigs with a bunch of little piglets. And some of those piglets can be aggressive, by the way. It's surprising how angry they are, but how small they can be. And unlike hunting other quarry or other animals, piglets aren't off the table, right? If you see a small pig, if you see any pig, regardless of size, you want to take it out, because in 6 months that pig is going to be a breeding age, and it's going to have its own little sounder. They breed like rats. So typically what you'll do is you'll stalk. Ideally you have 2, 3, maybe 4 people at the most, and you kind of fan out, right? Someone gets the left flank, someone gets the right flank. You go for the big pig in the middle. This is what I do. My buddy Alex Costa from AR Design, he has his own kind of tactics that he uses. This is what we typically find effective. Take out the biggest pig first, right? And then take out the second big pig next. And what that does is the little pigs in the sounder get kind of spooked and lost, right? Because they always go back to the mother. There's always runners at the side, which is why you have you guys on the left and right who are, watching very, very carefully, because they scatter immediately. And they always run to the tree line. So if there's ever trees nearby, like set up your guy in like an ambush style, because that's exactly where they're going to run, into those trees, because that's cover for them, and that's safety. So when we are stalking pigs, they will disappear into the woods and pop, like this has happened to us before, it was crazy. They will pop up hundreds of yards away, having gone all through the woods. They've got their little trails that they run on, and they're big, round, fat animals, but they travel like water, basically, slipping through brush and trees, and they move almost, uninhibited. So stalking can be fun. It can mess with your mind. You can be really frustrating because you're like, how do these pigs keep outsmarting me? Like, we had pigs that would get the jump on us like three or four times in a row one night, and we were we'd gone across the entire property before we finally caught up with them. But yeah, it's a thinking game. It's it's a sportsman's game. It's what's the word I'm looking for? A natural
adrenaline rush.
Yeah, it's someone it makes you feel really, really in tune with like your environment around you, right? Like you're part of that ecosystem. It's a cool feeling.
And also, I think I would imagine that being able to use night vision, or at least put the night vision to actual use and stuff, is a great experience as well. So I can only imagine.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of twofold. You do need night vision, but scanning with thermal makes your life so much easier.
Yeah.
There have been a couple of occasions where we've spotted under nods before we spotted with thermal, like looking through a windshield that's tinted, which you can't see through glass with thermal. So we were at the top of the hill looking down, and there was like 8 pigs just making a beeline for the woods nearby. And I saw it just because I was looking through nods, because I got sick of scanning, cranking my neck to the right to scan out the window. And we found them with nods versus thermal that time. So having both of those tools at your disposal does help.
I got you. Yeah, I'm about to say, and then that makes a lot more sense too. So, and that's kind of like one of the cool. Sorry, someone was calling me real quick. But that's kind of like the only problem, I guess, with some aspects of it. Is like, the entry fee of getting to have, like, I guess, maximizing the fun. Like, I remember I've been invited a couple times, and I'm like, man, I just don't feel like it'd be as fun if I'm having to borrow someone else's stuff instead of just using my own stuff. Yeah. So, like, that's definitely something on my radar.
Yeah, it's definitely not cheap. Didn't you get night vision there recently?
I did. I just got it up. Everything's set up and everything. Ended up snagging a really good deal from a good friend of a pair of Rnvgs.
Nice. And so, okay, that's what I have. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think for me, it honestly fits me, because I will be the first to admit that I can be a tad clumsy. And so I think that's what I've always been kind of looking at getting, is something like that. Because when the first thing I saw was like ruggedized, and they said it's kind of like, built for a little bit of, it can take a little bit of abuse. And I was like, yep, that's what I would need to get, because, just, if it's going to fall off of something, or if something's going to give way, it's going to happen to me. I just know it, so I'm just, whatever can withstand like a little bit of extra torment, that's probably what I need to get. So, man, it worked out, man. I got a good deal on them all, laser and IR, and then, went ahead and just outfitted everything with the helmet. And then I think the only thing now that I need to do is, I really need to get extra pair of Ear Pro, because I realized, like, I know you can reconnect them back on, but my Peltors are, like, I just don't want to have to deal with that shit like every single time. And man, that's just like, I don't know. And I'm sure you do know. And I think maybe we did talk about this, but like the cost of Peltors has like skyrocketed, like through the roof, dude. Like wild. Like I was talking to someone maybe a month ago, before even I was even looking at it, and they were like, "What's a good setup?" Setup stuff. I was like, "Well, I'm not probably the best person, but I was like, I got a good deal on my dual Comtax, third version." But they have the new one out. I said, so maybe you can get a pair of Gen 3s too and get a good deal on them, more like a single comm. I was like, honestly, I wish I had gotten a single comm. I didn't realize that, when I bought these, that I couldn't actually remove the dual comm. But
extra cables.
Yeah. So now I have excess cables hanging around, so I just have them tucked up and stuff. But yeah. So, and then like they're like, damn, these are really expensive. And my first reaction was like, you're just not looking hard enough. You're not in the right spot. You're not looking you're looking at like brand new MSRP from like Peltor or like 3M. But damn, man, I was wrong. I went online. It was like trying to get a second set, and I was like, well, I'll just get a regular pair of like single comms or whatever. Man, you can't find them anywhere, man. They are through the roof. They're like $500, $600, like for single comms.
Yep.
That's
and even
wild.
on the used market, like some of these gear reselling pages, I can't remember all their names right now, but there's a couple of them that mostly sell Peltors, Comtac 2s, 3s, dual, single and dual comm. And even the used ones were like $450 in good condition.
Yeah.
What's crazy is, MSRP on some of those, like if you go to 3M and buy direct, it's like $800 and something dollars.
Which is absurd.
It's wild. Don't pay that for Peltors.
Yeah, no
Always
shit.
buy used or $350 is the average price I remember them being pre-COVID. They're probably like $450 now. I've seen that popping up occasionally, but I'm not actively looking either at the same time. So my sample might be a little bit skewed. But what's crazy is with amps coming out now that Peltors aren't the Gucciest ear pro anymore.
I know.
They're mid-tier now. I'm like, whoa, back in the day, Peltors were like, you were a serious shooter if you had $300, $400 ear pro. You were like the real deal.
No joke, man. And I've looked at the amps before, and it's like I don't have it. I've never had a reason to get them. Like I've never had a reason to justify them, and they're relatively really really new. And then but now I'm looking at the helmets and stuff so I do have the adapters, so I have it to where it has like the amp arms. Adapter? Yeah, well, yeah. Or I guess Team Wendy's or whatever. Like it's basically so I can or AXL Advanced, so like they have like the adapters to use the Peltors on the arms and stuff, and so I've got that on there now. But damn, dude, it's like it's wild because it's like you said, they're like $450 or so, and I'm like, for a little bit more, I can get a brand new set of like amps if you can find them, and then it's kind of hard for me to justify. It's like one of those weird things. Like, and you're right, the cost of them right now is so wild.
Prioritize, right? Like if you're just getting into night vision, you don't have to have amps right away. Right?
Yeah.
It's once you've got other boxes checked, like you can go into like the ear pro. But the Axle adapters, Axle is just up the road here from me in Dallas.
Really?
They come. Jake and Matt come shooting with us every now and then. They're really cool guys. Their belt, the Eclipse belt, is awesome as well.
It's sweet, isn't it?
I'm wearing it right now. Yeah, it's like super. It feels like space technology.
It does, man. I love
when you're putting it on.
I'm about to say, I'll touch on that real quick, but it's funny that you bring that up because when it first came out, I don't know what happened. My phone did not send me my alert for when it was released, and I completely forgot. And that's why I had the alert on there so I could keep up with it and I wouldn't forget. And sure enough, it didn't do its job. But I was able to, I think, snag one of the Raptor ones. Yes, and every time someone's asked me, yes, I love the belt. It is awesome. Like,
it's great.
Every little I won't say misconception, but like anything that I thought would maybe be an issue or like, I wonder how this will work on there. No, it's incredible. Like, the only thing I did was as soon as I got it, I went ahead and ordered a Raptor belt, not a Raptor belt, but a Cobra belt instead to replace the Raptor belt. Because I don't really like the Raptor belt too much, but the standard Cobra belt is definitely like the bee's knees of that. So
is that their branded buckle that has AXL?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my other. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say my buddy Ray, he got one in Woodland, I think. They were kind enough to make me one a Multicam Black for obvious reasons.
Wow, so, nice.
I know. Sorry,
this guy.
flex here.
This guy.
But my buddy Ray just told me he's got an extra buckle, so I'm gonna try it out. This G hook thing that it comes with. I first saw it and I was like, that doesn't look very strong. And I think it was Jake from Axel was like, dude, why is everybody so obsessed with Cobra buckles? Like, And they're gear nerds to the utmost degree. I love talking about patterning and stretch and designs and backpacks and pants. And like these guys, this is what they live and breathe. They love it.
Sure.
They're experts on it. But he was like, we've got to kind of like give up this obsession with Cobra buckles. Like it's okay to have a G hook. It's low profile and still does the job. And I was like, all right, I will hear you out. I will try this G hook. And that's what I've been using the last 3 months. And it's pretty cool. I've got it on here. I'm going to try the buckle and then, see if I like it and, maybe flip flop between them. But I mean, all in all, it's such a cool belt. Super lightweight, very limited, it's
incredible.
Rigid. Yeah. Is it Tigris or Tigris, the material that it's made of? I can't remember.
Ooh, you're asking the wrong guy, to be honest with you.
It kind of looks like it's got the color of like carbon fiber.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a carbon fiber.
Yeah, but it's a really hard laminate like composite material. It's pretty neat. But I mean, this is I would wear this. I work from home now, so I would put it on in the morning, work all day, and it was totally comfortable. With an inner belt, it's a great setup. So everything that those guys do at Axel, like they make better, right? Yep. That's kind of how they started modifying Spiritus gear and JPCs and making mods and improvements, and they're really sharp guys. Definitely shout out to them. Go give them a follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even if it's just like a simple, tasteful thing that just makes life so much easier. And I think it was on a previous podcast I had mentioned it. I can't remember. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was like on a live or something like that. But yeah, like when they were able to introduce like that little pocket for the Spear's Defense, like to get rid of like the Velcro. Like, dude, I hate Velcro so much. I hate the sound of it. And like, it doesn't even matter if it's like in a tactical, like not even a tactical sense. Like I hate like just having to rip like that sound and then having to readjust and reset it, or like lifting a pad. But just being able to use a plain zipper, and the way they did it was just very, very tasteful too. And then yeah, the belt was a no-brainer when I saw it, and I was like, definitely got to get one, and it was awesome. So as soon as they released, I snagged one, and I will say, like, I 100% agree on like getting away from like the Cobra belt. For me, it was more just like I don't know. I think it was just like the simplicity of being able to just remove it via belt, like a belt buckle. I think that's why I went with that one. But looking back when I had gotten it, I was thinking to myself, instead of getting this Raptor belt buckle, I wish I had just gotten the G hook. Like I remember, like pretty plainly thinking that, like, damn, I just should have just got saved a couple bucks, and then if I really wanted the belt, the buckle, then I can just order one online and get one. But in comparison to the Raptor, I think I would have much preferred the G hook. So definitely not a bad trade off. But it is because it's just kind of like a simple loop and then pull, right?
Yeah, exactly. And my message to everyone would be like, hey, just give the G hook a try. Like, just see if you like it, because it's surprisingly comfortable, and it absolutely does the job. Like, you don't need a giant, Cobra buckle from Austria just to, hold your belt together necessarily.
Yeah. I'll have to send you a picture of the one that I got, because it was like actually like some unique colorway that I was able to snag from some like little gear store.
Cool.
It looks, I was about to say, it's pretty neat. So I was about to say, oh, that's pretty cool. So that is very cool. Actually, I will say you mentioned the inner belt part. That was like the one thing, the one downfall that I wish I had done when I initially ordered my first belt was order the inner belt to go with it. But so I think I have an order in for like a couple weeks ago. So hopefully it'll roll out sometime soon. But yeah, definitely a must.
Yeah, my confession is that I went on Amazon and bought an inner belt for like $12 or $13. My invitation to everyone would be go support Axel, buy theirs, because I'm sure theirs is 100 times better than the cheap one that I got. But I needed something like super fast and for a shoot that we had coming up. So I'll probably try and grab one of their inner belts at a later date. But because everything they do is awesome, right?
Yep,
like I have full confidence that it'd be a good belt. But tell me more about your Rnvgs. I know I'm kind of flipping the table here, asking you questions. But why did you go with Rnvgs, and what other decisions did you make with your helmet? I'm curious.
So I will say that 100% of my thought process on this was kind of more spontaneous, and it was also from a professional advice from guys who are that high speed. And shout out to Granola, and then there's so many people I had and Counting Coup. I had asked questions to him as well, and some other guys that I had kind of really used as like a reference and to come to lean back on to what to and what not to get. As for the Rnvgs, I had always decided on that one just based on, like I was saying earlier, like the ruggedness of them. And I'll be 100% honest. I'm still like, even beforehand, I wasn't very savvy, and I still am not 100%. I'm learning as I go every time. I'm learning something new with like night vision in general, which I was hoping to do a night vision podcast before I purchased, but hey, it's whatever, It's like one of those things that happens. Yeah. But a really, really good deal had come across, and it was offered to me, and a kind of a cool. I'll have to go into details on it. It doesn't matter. Long story short. Someone had purchased them a year ago and more or less had passed away. And so this family was trying to basically get rid of them, sell them, but they wanted to make sure they were going to go to good use. They weren't just going to like throw them on eBay or auction. They wanted to, make sure they was gone to the right person. And so a good friend was able to relay this to me. And again, like I said, the price, it was such a great price. And I knew at some point that I was going to dip my toes into this market. And I felt like, it might be one of those things where I might not get a chance like this ever again. And the amount of money I'm saving is worth, for me to kind of like jump a little earlier than I was expecting. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have done it just then. So, went with the Rnvgs. Very nice. Yeah. So that was the big thing. So from there on, as for like helmet decision, that was kind of difficult. I wasn't really sure. I will say I did go with just the standard bump helmet. For me, like right now, I think that checks all the boxes of what I need and kind of balances. But I did go with Team Wendy on it. I was kind of going between the two, and I had some opinion, inserted, from either OpsCore or Team Wendy. But again, asking and referencing to the professional experiences of some pretty fast dudes who actually use them on a work basis of helmets and night vision and SF or fast team guys. They all said Team Wendy. Like they said, like it was just crazy comfortable, and they said it was just long wear and worn. Like they prefer those. Like there was never even a question. Like it was even a second guess, and they just said Team Wendy. Like it was like no joke. And honestly, I realized at that point that if I didn't take that advice, then I would be the clown, right? So if I set a picture or something like that, or if I go to I'm going to a class with one of the guys is actually an instructor, so I'll probably go to a class with him or take one of his classes. And I know that if I showed up and I had like a different helmet, he's like, "Didn't I tell you, motherfucker, to get a Team Wendy, not an OpsCore?" Yeah, so call you out on it. Yeah, 100% would. But all of course in play, it's like one of those things where you get professional input and you get professional advice, and at that point, if you are if you go against the grain and you learn the hard way, that's kind of your fault at that point. So, and of course, they may be less likely to give you help and advice moving forward too. So, 100% with the Team Wendy, and it is comfortable, but I would. I can't lie and say that I had experience with the OpsCore. I never even was able to try one on. Not a lot of night vision people near me. He did offer me to try some of his on, but it would just have been, timeline just didn't match up. So that's kind of how I wound up with that one. And with the night vision came with some extras. It came with one of the IR beep lights on top. I know that's probably the 100% the incorrect term of phrasing for them, but I know it's like one of the standard lights that goes on top of the helmet. It's not a Manta. I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head now that I'm like.
Is it a Hellstar?
Hellstar. Yep. There it is. Yep. Okay. Hellstar. Yeah. Hellstar on top.
There's like an S2000 as well, which is like the old like army issued green looking thing.
Right.
Yeah, I love the Hellstar. I got one. There's like a super bright version and like a less bright version. I think both are good decisions. I think Hellstars are pretty cool. I had a Manta, nothing wrong with it. I just kind of thought the Hellstar was cool, wanted something fresh and upgraded. Sure. But I think the most consistent helmet advice I ever received, I have an OpsCore Carbon, which I love. I've had it for years. It's lightweight for hunting, easy on the neck. It's vented for hot summers. Like it makes a lot of sense for what I do. But regardless of the brand or ballistic or bump or whatever you choose, like upgrading the pads makes a world of difference. I've been meaning to get 4D pads, like the gold standard of like cushy pillow soft pads for months, because when it's like hour 4 of the night shoot or whatever, I start getting a hot spot like right in the crown of my head, and it drives me nuts. So I definitely need to upgrade my pads. My dream helmet is like the OpsCore SF. It's got like real aggressive looking Velcro patterns, and even the carbon or the plastic, the bump version So I'm always having to rearrange my pads inside anyway because I have a large noggin. But yeah, that's cool. I love my Rnvgs as well. I kind of got into Rnvgs because it was like the most economical upgrade to a dual tube goggle system. I'm going to backtrack and kind of eat my own words here for a second. A lot of guys, when they get into night vision, like my buddy Ray, who I just mentioned, don't want to buy anything until they can buy exactly what they want, right? They want the white Foss dual tubes, and they're going to spend, the every dollar it takes to get that, but they don't want any kind of substitute, in the meantime. I started with a PVS 14, and I kind of understand both mentalities, right? Like save up and get the best, absolutely. But if you're looking to get into night vision and you live, if you're not sure how often you're going to get to use your tubes, get a PVS 14, get started, and then see how frequently you're actually using that device. Does it just sit in your safe? Hopefully it doesn't. Do you have opportunities in your area to shoot or to hunt or to even go on a nods hike? We've done some of those in the past when we didn't feel like shooting. I've got buddies up in New Jersey, right, with night vision that will go on a hike, 3 of them together in the dark, and not even bring guns because it's New Jersey.
Right.
And then once you understand kind of your frequency or your level of involvement in the hobby, decide kind of what you want to do from there. The benefit in getting a PVS 14 versus waiting is like, well, you can see in the dark, right now, and you can do a lot of stuff with a PVS 14 versus with nothing, right? I killed a lot of pigs with a PVS 14 over my left eye. Would I go back to a monocular? No, because I enjoy a dual tube system, but decide which path is right for you. Are you going to save up and just jump in with both feet, or are you going to get some kind of solution halfway where you have a monocular for a time until you upgrade and buy another tube and put it in a housing and get it sent off to get collimated and purged and all that kind of stuff that should happen. But the Rnvg is great because when you're getting in and out of a side-by-side, again, like I said, or a Razor or any kind of truck, the Rnvgs go up. Not that much higher than like a PVS 14 or any other system. If you have a G24, it's pretty manageable, but that's still sticking up out the front of your head and will get bumped on a lot of things in a vehicle, inside, outside, bump it on the trunk of your hood, bump it on an off-road vehicle, whatever it may be. And it's nice to have the peace of mind that this is an aluminum machined housing that's really, really durable. There's a big plus to that. In our group of shooting friends, there's about 8 of us in a group chat, and 4 of them have Rnvgs, including me, and 4 of them have, a DTNVG or DTNVS or PVS 31s. And when you poll everyone, say, which one is your favorite, people always say they like theirs the most, right?
Of course. The
Rnvg doesn't articulate. That's a limitation, but it's very, very strong, right? Yeah. The PVS 31 or the DTNVG will articulate. That's an advantage. And it's still strong. It's just not quite as as
rugged,
built like a tank as an aluminum housing would be. So I think whichever one is right for you. I've considered upgrading my housing to the DTNVS at some point this year. I think I might do that. Question mark. I might buy a new camera instead. I haven't decided yet, but the DTNVS is pretty stinking cool. I had a chance to look through one recently that Jerry had. He was on one of your previous episodes. Just a really, really cool piece of gear that I would love to get at some point down the road.
Very cool. Yeah, is that something that just reutilizes the current tubes that are on the Rnvgs and then just puts them on a new bridge and stuff?
Yeah, it's essentially, it's a skeletonized lightweight version of the DTNVG goggle. So
gotcha.
It looks a little bit spacey, like space age. It's the DTNVG is very robust. They're not weak, but anything can break over time. When you have an articulation point, it's just a point of weakness that potentially could fail, right? So the DTNVS is lightweight. It's, from what I've seen, it's still just as strong. I haven't seen any broken pairs yet that I've been aware of, but it's just really, really lightweight. The articulation is like glass smooth. It's just, there's some nice little tweaks that they've done on the original DTNVG design.
Very cool, man. Yeah, that's something I'll have to... Like right now, I think you made some really good advice, and it was actually similar advice that people had given about trying to get into night vision. I think that's 100% accurate, and I will be the first. Again, another check mark on there. I was definitely was of the mindset of I wanted to make sure that whatever I got that I'd be happy with. So I had kind of had into my mind how much I was planning to spend. So it was definitely on the dual tubes, blah blah blah. So I kind of like, that was my mindset as well. It's a mindset as well. Cause I was like, yeah, I mean, like, why get in? But the cool thing is, and I didn't realize this until I think when I spoke with Mike over at Kilo Tactical, was the resale market for night vision and like the demand is through the roof right now too. So
Yeah.
if you like, worst case scenario, if you get what you get into it, dip your toes in, you're like, okay, you get your money's worth, you could probably more than likely get your money back, or at least get most of your money back to put towards your next set of, et cetera, or whatever you're looking into getting, or if you just want to try it out.
Oh, exactly. And unless you're buying like Anvus 6s and Anvus 9s, which are known to be a little bit fragile, like that doesn't necessarily hold retail value. Like some of the old Sentinels, I don't know if you'd get full price for them, but a modern housing like a DTMVG or an Rnvg or 31s are absolutely going to hold their resale value right now.
Yeah.
I think PVS 15s are a little less popular just because they're kind of heavy. They're kind of out of vogue, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, generally they're going to retain their value, and there's so many dealers now that are trustworthy. It was kind of the Wild West a couple of years ago. You found some guy who was selling them online, and you bought them, and you're like, I hope these are rated, with the correct clarity and line pair and FOM and all this kind of stuff that they claimed, because there's no data sheet, and I hope these are not stolen, and I hope you didn't trash these, and you just kind of had to roll the dice. And luckily now there's enough good dealers out there with warranties and expertise to service them and clean them and prove that they're legit, to kind of keep you safe in that regard. So it's not a cheap purchase. It's a purchase that you want to make a good decision on and be happy with.
Yep, absolutely, man. And I 100% agree. And I think one advice that I think everyone will always say is don't go broke getting into night vision as well.
Yep.
And like you said earlier, if you want to try it out, don't feel like you have to, throw the bank at getting a whole setup. You can always start off with the PVS 14, just to at least get started and see in the dark, like you said. And I think that's a great piece of advice. I'm not sure if that's what I would have done, just because of the way my mentality is. Like, I just know that if I go gung ho, then I just go gung ho the first time. That way I don't have any doubt, or I guess that deep thought in my mind is like, oh, what if you waste some money? You could have just gotten this instead if you would just stop whining. Kind of like that's my thought process. But if I hadn't gotten such a good deal on my Rnvgs, then I may have I may have gone that route as well. Start off with PVS 14s, make sure I get my money's worth, and then from there, go whatever direction I'm leaning or thinking. So.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard the phrase, own the night, silence the night. There's a lot of phrases like that. Don't finance the night. Right?
Don't finance the night. That's
pay
hilarious.
Cash, save up, be patient, right? Work some overtime shifts, whatever you got to do to hustle and make some extra money for that. But I know folks that will wait until right after tax season and just pick up all the nods that people bought, realize they're not using, and try to sell again. So if you're patient, if you're strategic, you can kind of wait for the right time to jump on a good set for a good price.
100%, man. 100%. So I think that might be a good wrapping up point, man. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can always jump back on again and continue the chat.
Yeah, we'll have to continue on maybe, and I'll have to go to either take a class or do some night hunting myself, and then we can touch back, and I'll tell you the experience, the thrill. I've always liked hunting myself, but it's always been more active hunting. So what you're describing kind of sounds like the thrill and stuff that I enjoy, which, bird hunting was the same thing. It's, or, quail hunting is really fun. And then dove hunting is really fun. It's one of those things where you're not having to be quiet or sitting 100% still every single time. And it's more active and stuff. That to me is more my play style. And then being able to, like I said, utilize all that stuff that sounds like just fucking crazy good fun. So.
Yeah,
awesome,
I went on a pheasant hunt once, just on that topic, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of walking, but when the bird pops out, it's like you just get laser focused on, there it is, right? You've been waiting for this moment, you pull the trigger and everything, just comes together perfectly. It's a great feeling. But hopefully we can do the next episode when you're out here in Texas or something.
Yeah, dude.
Come hunt with us.
Absolutely.
Come to the range, because if we're not hunting, we're out somewhere in the middle of the dark in a random field somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, we usually, this sounds kind of like bougie, but we bring a grill now whenever we go shoot. 'Cause you know, we get hungry.
Yeah, make the most of it, man. When you're out there all night and stuff, like
Yeah.
you have to make the best of it. And if otherwise, if you're not, then someone has to go home or everyone has to leave, and then you lose the drive if that's the case. So yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's the.
And sometimes, yeah, go ahead.
No, please go.
I just said sometimes we do a little bit more eating than, you know, shooting given the price of ammo. And we make the joke that we're out there training as like meal team 6, you know,
That's hilarious.
Because we're eating more carnitas, we're eating more tacos than we're actually, you know, shooting mags of ammo. But that's what it's all about. Hanging out in the dark with your dudes, with your boys, looking at the sky, talking about aliens, and, you know, just hanging out in the dark. That's what night vision's all about.
Oh man, we didn't even have a chance to talk about aliens. Next time though, for sure. Though.
Let me tell you, that will be we'll have a big deep chat about aliens.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot going on there.
Go down a rabbit hole or two or something.
Yes, prepare yourself.
Awesome. Okay, so again, that's Aganz, Alex, Multicam Gang, and Multicam Black Gang. Jeez, man, dyslexia kicking in 100%. Thank you. Where's the best place they can reach you? Whether if they're, you know, looking at some of your pics and all your, you know, your awesome setup, or Multicam Black Gang, where can they reach you?
The best places to go: Instagram. My personal or my main account is Aganz, which is Aganz with 2 underscores. Chances are you will not find it unless you type it in exactly letter for letter. It doesn't appear anymore. Instagram doesn't like me. Multicam Black Gang should be a little bit easier to find again on Instagram. And then the website that I've just launched is aganzstore.com. So AGANZ store.com. Got some stickers and some radio stuff up there for people to check out.
Very cool. Yeah, and I'll have everything linked up too. So if you're like me and you hear it, but you're not able to comprehend letters and stuff like that while you're driving or listening, I'll have it all linked up for you, so you'll be able to find it on the podcast link or on probably the Instagram post when we announce when it gets posted. So, hey man, thank you so much for giving me your time, your afternoon, especially on a Friday. No one likes doing anything Friday afternoon, so thank you so much for jumping on and just bullshitting and just chatting it out, man.
It's been absolutely my pleasure, man. It's been a great way to spend my Friday. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.